You're listening to the REITE Club podcast, where the focus is all about helping you grow your real estate investment portfolio and live the life you want to live. Come grow with us and join our community at thereiteclub.com. And now your hosts, Sarah Larby and Alfonso Salemi.
Because I wake up every day and I jump on Clubhouse, I jump in rooms like this and I try and connect with people. And I'm looking at opportunities in places that I never really thought I would. Places like Texas, places like Florida, places like Denver, because we do live in a global village. And it sounds weird for me to say that now, because 10 years ago, I would have never thought I'd be looking at stuff in those areas. But, you know, does where you live matter as much as it did before? Does where you work matter as much as it did before? I could see somebody like you or you, Francois, you know, having 3 or 4 places that you're visiting on a frequent basis and 3 or 4 networks of people that now become the opportunity zones, because your job creates money, but your real wealth comes from the relationships that you make, right?
It's so true. And I saw the Gary V shoes that you got a while ago. They're right there.
By the way, though, and I'll let you, but we have the same bookshelf. Just
amazing. Oh, there you go.
Cool.
I didn't even notice that. That's struck too. Yeah, that was one of the only ones that fit. It's funny because that should have been a curtain. Wasco, the great home builders, right on the other unit beside us. And they always walk out on the patio. I'm like, I got to put something there. But everything there has a meaning to me as well, too, right? And I think, yeah, it's working hard and getting things is great. But I think it's the working hard and the journey that's the fun part.
And I love that concept that you mentioned earlier about having different places. And I am designing my lifestyle like that. The REITE Club now is all about customizing your life as investors, because in the end, it's not the assets. We don't really care about the assets. It's what it brings to you. Like you said, time is precious. You don't get it back. So that's huge. And now you mentioned different markets like Texas, Florida. Are you going even beyond that, like other countries, or like, I know that's the States, but.
Well, with the political climate that we have in Canada, who knows what they're going to let us do and not do. I'm excited for next year, though. I think, you know, people are resilient. I think we succeed in spite of our political process, not because of it. But right now I'm focused on North America. My wife likes to take road trips. I get a lot of speaking engagements through my networks as well, too. So 2022, I'm going to probably be spending a lot of time in North America, canvassing, anchoring those relationships. One of my mentors happens to be in Manhattan, another one's in Charlotte, and we've kind of got people all over. So I'm really focused on North America. But through Clubhouse, for example, I have a friend named Yogi who is in one of the best districts in Israel, and fascinating to see what's happening there. And then Sina Sadat is another guy I met who he actually runs an Instagram account. You've probably seen it, called Luxury Listings. It's the largest luxury real estate account on all of Instagram. And he's been giving me insights into architects that are doing some stuff in the UK and just different vehicles of investment that I'm like, man, it seems like we're talking a different language. But
I think that's cool, though. I mean, I think it's, you know, obviously, despite all the nonsense that COVID brought, the fact that we can live wherever, work wherever, communicate. I mean, I look at some of my friends today. I've met them on Instagram probably in the last couple of years. And then as things started opening up, we started hanging out, and that's pretty cool. But to go back to one of the things I think was really interesting that you were saying, and I'm starting to really push this as well, is there is not a lot of inventory out there throughout North America. And I think it's important that we are not just all trying to go after the same types of deals. And if you want to do something and you want to make things happen, you really have to look in a different sandbox, and you have to go against the grain. And like, you've got to really actually think, okay, how can I create a deal here that somebody's not seeing? Somebody's not wanting to do it for whatever reason. Maybe it's experience, maybe it's you know, cash or whatnot, and making things happen. And I think that's where people are going to do really well in the next couple of years if this market continues being the way that it is, with no inventory and everybody competing and raising the prices off, you know, conversion opportunities and different things. I still love the BRRRR strategy. There are still some deals, but we're all looking for the same thing. So how you can set yourself apart and do something different, I think, is going to be the most successful investors, I think, moving forward. So what are some of the things that you are doing against the grain, going into a different sandbox? If you don't mind sharing, like maybe just a couple things that you've been doing recently.
Well, I'll highlight how you're correct, because the BRRRR strategy became a very, very busy space. And then everybody started going after apartment buildings, and that became a very, very busy space. Now everybody's running into land development. That's becoming a busy space as well, right? So it's good because it's proven that where things are, you'll have the first, second, and third movers. Once the third movers are there, you're having the conversation that you're having, Sarah. And I think going to markets that you thought were way further out than they were, right? If you're looking at tertiary markets, I'll use Southwestern Ontario as an example because we talked about this a little bit last time. London, 7 years ago, was almost laughable to some people. It was a place maybe you played hockey one time or you heard about a mayor scandal, but you weren't really investing there because cash flow wasn't there. Now London's like Kitchener, right? And now Port Stanley is like London was. And you start going to the other markets. Well, start going out from there and look at markets that you think, oh, it's a sleepy little town. Nothing's ever going to happen here because the second movers are already in those places. And not only that, I mean, we talk about foreign investment and the types of people that are coming in and purchasing and buying for generations, right? Like I'll take London as an example. If we're looking at this market, the people that are buying here, even the local developers and local builders are having a really tough time getting land. So the way that I like to do things is when you're having a really tough time finding deals, start looking at deals people passed over. Right? We do that every day here. I was actually with my team today. We had an investor in here and we were having a conversation. He's like, I'm never going to be able to buy because of the market. I'm like, well, hold on. Let's look at the expired listings over the last, 60 to 90 days. Stuff that was listed 90 days ago that's probably gone up in value. Maybe they would still sell at that same price. Right? And unfortunately, there's no standard of care in this industry. So you end up having people that maybe didn't position an asset the right way. And here's a very counterintuitive way of doing it. It's against the rules, but a lot of agents will scrape expired listings and just call sellers directly because why would I call Justin or why would I call the agent that had the listing? I'll just go direct. Here's an opposite approach. And you can tell your realtor to do this. Pull your expireds, call those listing agents and give them the olive branch and tell them like, I'm a buyer at this price with this type of structure. And just start throwing darts out there. You'd be shocked how many deals we do that way. And getting the long game, those agents, I'm always dropping in their ear, next time you have a deal, can you send it to me first before it hits the MLS, right? So think about cultivating long-term relationships and treating people well. You may lose some deals that you would have done that were priced a little bit better if you could have gone direct, but sometimes you end up having an asset or an agent sending you things that you didn't have otherwise. And then let's take the agent out of the equation. Community perspective. Doing social media, Sarah, it's how I got to know you. I knew you before I even talked to you now because I feel like I've seen so much of your content, but you have to be thoughtful about how you communicate. Social media has been exposed as fake. A lot of people know that, but the methodology of communication that you have on social media is the same communication you should have at the grocery store, at the post office, at the bank tellers, telling them what you're doing and what you're looking for. And eventually somebody's going to turn around and find a way of connecting you with the person that has that asset. So maybe I'm a little bit crazy that way, but I'm pretty thoughtful about how I'm networking and then logging all of that information into my system and then following back on that information to see where those people were. We found a guy today, for example, we were scraping leads in our system that hadn't been touched in a long time because they were just inactive, never responded. And we found a guy that actually bought a dream home and would sell it for a pretty good price. And now we're potentially looking at inventory that doesn't exist. So if you can't find the inventory, try and create it.
Yeah, I love everything you mentioned there. That's how I've gotten a few deals. A lot of people say, oh, go off market, go with wholesalers. No, actually go over the overlooked market. And it does happen. I've seen London grow and boom. And also I invest quite a bit in Moncton, New Brunswick, which I find was kind of like London a few years back. So Moncton was really cheap. Now, like you said, it's people from all over the world.
Yep.
My tenants, I have some people from Dubai moving in, all over the place, China, and they're renting sight unseen, but they're also buying sight unseen. So I sold a sixplex last week. And again, people just from out of the country and they just make a cash offer. And they are buying for generations because, as you mentioned a bit earlier, land development, all of that. So sometimes they buy it for the land, not for the building itself. And that's something people need to consider. Maybe you're overpaying, but the piece of land that it sits on is huge and it's great for redevelopment. Is that something you're seeing for London? Is there still space for like redevelopment, densification, things like that, because it's quite low rise. London was very flat when I used to live there. So
There's still, so the official plan calls for it, yes, but going back to the political process, it's a bit of a joke the way that they have it set up, because anytime a builder or somebody finds a piece of land that's perfect and matches the official plan, they submit the application, it gets shot down because the politicians satisfying their voter base.
Thanks for listening to the REITE Club podcast and joining our community of real estate investors online at thereiteclub.com, where the focus is about helping you grow. We look forward to seeing you again next week. Thanks from your hosts, Sarah Larby and Alfonso Salemi.